April 9th, 2021. The official announcement came out that DMX, aka Earl Simmons, passed away at the age of 50. So me and Cher are going to talk about that today.
Yeah, like the night before
Uh,
you hit me up and was asking me about it, and I was like, nah, I don't want to talk about it because he still was, in the hospital, and I was just hoping, I'm wishing that he pulled through, and obviously there was like a false alarm like the night before, but his manager Steve Rifkin came out and put out a statement, but you could also see visually that he was kind of like torn up too, and he was just saying, like it's kind of like, disrespectful to the family for you guys to put that information out. And I think what was happening was that the family was probably coming to the grips that they would have to take him off life support, and they were saying their last goodbyes, and I think that's why he didn't want people to just put that out there and start sending stuff while his family is still you know even though it's obvious, like
grieving,
they
yeah.
had to let him go. Yeah, like they had to let him go. He was still there for that time, and they were still like, saying their goodbyes and stuff like that. So that's why, like, I didn't want to say anything that night, and I also was hoping that he would, bounce back and tear shit up, one more time. That he would have had another life. But might go on.
Yeah, but not even performing. We didn't want. He doesn't have to. He didn't have to perform. His words, he wrote a book, because we'll talk about it. The words of wisdom. If you read the actual lyrics, just as in a poem form. But also, like, the family coming in, it's they're at the hospital, and there was sort of like a vigil. There was like fans out there. If you let like the media know, it's surrounded by trucks, surrounded by media personnel and family that were not there yet. They can't get in. They wouldn't be able to get in there. So that's been on my mind throughout the whole week, and obviously, we're talking about it today because he's gone. But yeah, he's 50 years old. His prime was a great time in music. But Sheg, let's talk about our own personal experiences with his music.
Hmm.
When was the first time you heard him?
Yeah, so we both are here from the New York area. Earl Simmons was born in Mount Vernon and grew up in Yonkers. And for the people who aren't familiar with the New York City area, like the Bronx, or northern part of the Bronx, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, like we're basically all like, family. We're basically like cousin. We all three areas are like one and the same. It's just, Yonkers and um Mount Vernon are in Westchester County, and Bronx, of course, is in New York City. But I actually was introduced to him back in the Virgin Islands when I was like 7 or 8 years old. My neighbor, who was also like my best friend, she came over, and we used to always listen to music, and all of these people are like popped on the scene. Um, Juvenile and Cash Money, DMX and the Rough Riders. All of these people, we would listen to that music like together, and I was like so inspired by him because like he just seemed cool as hell, and like he kind of reminded me of like Pac. And I used to like tie my bandana like DMX did, and a lot of people would confuse it with like how Ja Rule and Tupac would tie their tie their bandana. But like DMX, he tied his different. I used to tie my bandana just like him. And I just the one thing I always remember is like when she played one of his albums. I can't remember if it was uh what is it? Hell is Dark, and
The, the first album is dark and hell is hot.
yeah, I can't remember if it was that album or his second album. But she just played a
Mhm.
song. And to say it's a song is kind of dumb. She just played like a track where it was just him like praying and like
Mm.
talking to God, and it just it blew my mind because I was like, I've never heard this in rap, and it's like it's kind of like a weird um variety, like as far as like album was concerned, because like it's like, you know, 13 tracks of him talking about like some hood shit, some hood gangster shit, and then like the 14th track is him like, God, I love you so much. How can you make me be a better man? And it's just like the one thing, and this is every like album of his was like that. Like it had one or two songs where it was just him praying, or it was a song dedicated to like his faith. And he was just one of them people that just inspired me because like it inspired me to learn that like everybody has a different relationship with God, and everybody thinks like being a Christian. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week with the Lil Nas X stuff, where it's like, all right, just because you don't go to church every Sunday doesn't mean like you're not a Christian. A lot of people like instantly think that like to be a Christian, you're supposed to be like a goody two shoes and be like judgmental and always be clutching your pearls. But DMX was like the first person that showed me that you could have a different relationship with God. It's just you have to live your life and try to be as godly as you possibly can, and then ask for forgiveness when you're not. Like you're not supposed to live your life just um like, oh, like I can't do this because I'm Christian, like God might be watching. It's like you could do that, but as long as you you could do wrong as long as you understand that you did wrong, and you ask forgiveness for it. And one of the things I tweeted out, and it's funny because I actually tweeted the lyric out like 8 years ago. But the one thing like I always look at, or one of the things that always made me feel better when I was like depressed, is the intro, the intro to Slippin', where he says, well, first of all, like he's like this life shit. So then you already know that like he isn't talking about a particular situation. He's just talking about life in general. Like he just says this life shit, but it's what he says when he says to live is to suffer, and to understand is to find meaning in the suffering. And there's a lot of times like I'll be going through like hard times, and like my friends don't have the words, like, you know, for me, or I'd turn to friends and they wouldn't be there. But I'd look at that friends are well, I won't say family, like my family's there, but sometimes they don't have the words. But I look at that quote, and it's just like you gotta break it down. Like to live is to suffer. Like nobody is gonna have a life where you don't go through like bad shit. But if you live your whole life going through bad shit and just always, what was me? Like all of this has happened to me. Like why is this happening? Like I didn't do anything. Like why do people treat me like this? Like you're not gonna get anywhere. But if you understand that there's like bad things that are gonna happen to you in life, but you could look at it and find some kind of like meaning as to why these things happen, it would help you avoid them in the future, or either be better prepared for them in the future. And that's the one thing, like in those two lines, like he stressed that um he stretched that into something like I've lived with through my whole life. Like think about that for a second, and that's probably something he took from the Bible. I wouldn't even I'm not sure, but it's something a lot of people go to like Bible verses or some kind of like motto from some kind of like motivational speaker or some shit. And like me, anytime I'm down in the dumps, I look at this DMX like phrase. I wouldn't even say it's a lyric because it's just the intro. So that's the impact his music had on me. What about you, Mike?
Well, let me just you brought up the quote. I was going to bring this up at the end, but this is it's appropriate. So he also said, I think he said this because he read the Bible every day, and in his younger years he was incarcerated for a while because his whole story, like when he was from when he was born to when he was like a toddler. By all accounts, he was abused physically by his mother and all her like different like boyfriends at the time, so much that like he had to go to the hospital. And I'm just saying this is what he said too. Like, he told people this. Also, he suffered from he suffered from asthma, so they would take him to the ER like every other day for a while. So he just from the beginning he was like he lived this like life, like struggling through stuff. Um, but he said he read the Bible like daily. What she said, it sounded like something he might have like found from the like a verse. But he also said this, and this goes back to you saying the whole like you don't have to be a goody two shoe to be a Christian or a good person and everything. But I came here to meet someone. I don't know who it is, but I'll know when I see him. And basically, the whole point of that, he also says, and when I see him, I'm going to tell him, I have a message for you, and it's like Jesus loves you and everything. Uh, I'm just gonna say that you can't tell someone else what to do without living the experience. Like that's why it's so important. Like a counselor who's lived that life, you're not gonna listen to someone who's just being judgmental. If someone actually lived this a life of something like where he experienced with like a substance abuse and just something like that, then you'll listen to them. You know, does that make sense? Right? Like walking, living a life.
Yeah,
Then when you move on from that, you have the purpose you can have is that tell someone else, hey, I already lived this life.
yeah.
I've already experienced this. You don't have to experience this because I
And
experienced it already.
he talked to he used to do talk to motivation do like not even really like motivational speaking, but just show up at like homeless shelters and talk to homeless people, talk to people at like um recently released from incarceration, recovering drug addicts, all type of things life he lived, like his like I think like his MO in life was just to keep like paying shit forward.
Mm. Yeah. So when I first heard it, I remember it was like the single came out. Um, Again, we were about the same age. I think I was 9, and I remember I came home. Uh, the It was a time where me and my brother, well, obviously my whole family, I moved from, even though it was like 10 minutes away, it felt like an hour away. I moved from like the North Bronx to Yonkers, and I had no idea where I was. I was 9. I was like, where the hell am I? So I live so far away now. Where am I? Even though it's like the 5-minute drive, and it was like a shift in like the family dynamic. So me and my brother um, we bonded more. We started watching wrestling again. We started watching music together more. We used to buy like records at Sam Goody at the Cross County,
Mhm.
and this song came on, dun 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 dun, like the Rough Rider anthem,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we're watching it, and it's like Yonkers. I was like Yonkers. I was like, oh, this is where I'm at right now. It was like
Straight
weird. I was like, I never heard it
wild.
before. Yeah, I was like, oh, no one ever like. Now it's like
Yeah,
different, but back then I was like, if I heard someone say Yonkers, I'm like, I still say it about the guy like Tommy Dreamer, and there's another guy wrestler now who's from the neighborhood, and I'm always like, I guess it's like a New York thing, like you're proud of like your neighborhood.
yeah.
But so that came out like in early '98, and then I remember buying the single. I still had it. My brother has it now, but I still had the cassette. It was "Get at Me, Dog" and "Stop Being Greedy." It
Mhm.
was gray, had the red lighting lettering on it. I wore that out. I used to listen to it on the 25 bus coming back from elementary school home. That and like Method Man. That was that time where that all that good music was coming out, like the Wu Tang. I had all their
90s,
solo
yeah.
albums. Then the album came out in '98, May '98. I remember 2 albums in 1 year. It was a big deal. Like, yeah. So it reminds me. It's like a soundtrack to a time where like two parts of my childhood. Like when I was really young, and then when I remember everything. Like we're like 9, 10, early teenagers, and it was just kind of that moment where that was like one of the songs I listened to a lot. So actually, in the last few months, I've been thinking about that a lot too. It's weird, but yeah, I mean, um, I'm trying to think something else what happened with that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just it's like a soundtrack to a time.
Mhm.
Even though like it's just the music I listened to at the time, and it just reminds me of that. So that's why I've been thinking about it a lot too, because it has
Yeah.
other meanings to it. But let's go into. I already talked about him early on with his situations he had with the abuse and everything. And then when they moved to Yonkers, he was sent away to a boys' home, like multiple boys' homes. And this is probably what, like late 70s. So this is before like hip hop is like on like the radio even. There's no like it's a local thing still.
Hmm.
And he got into like hip hop and he met people who they started like getting involved in it. That's where he came up. That's where he got the name DMX. It was actually based on the sampler Oberman, like the drum machine sampler.
Hmm.
It was called the DMX. So that's where, and then it evolved with him. Then when he came like a man, like it turned into a new thing. It became Dark Man X, and it just came, which is I always thought that was a cool story where it started off something different, then evolved with him.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the first album, it's Dark and Hell is Hot, May '98. Uh, I'm just gonna drop some the tracks that are on the album. You got the Rough Riders anthem, that iconic sound, Swizz Beats. We all know Swizz Beats. He's very Alicia Keys. He's been around for 25 years. That sound was so different than, like you said, Cash Money. That had its own sound. The West Coast had their own sound. You know,
Yeah.
uh, so
Back
this
when
was like the new sound.
producers was producing.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like Wu Tang sound. It wasn't like samples. It was just more um, like synth. It was more like synth and like not samples as much, even though there was samples. It was more like the Dame Grease sound. So you had Rough Riders anthem and Get At Me Dog
Mm.
and a fellow Yonkers native Sheik Luch is on it
Yeah.
and Deluxe. That's another big hit. And then you had X is Coming, that song, right? You just listen to the album over again, right?
Hmm.
And you talk about the spirituality, Damien. That's uh that's a song where it's like he's like reflecting on a lot of things like that. And then he has Prayer Skit One. Like you said, all four of the first albums have a prayer skit on it. And then Stop Being Greedy. And later that year, wow, because like people always say, like, you make your first album, you have your whole life to make it, and then you have the second one. So then but this came out the same year, and the song from that I remember is "Slippin'."
Yeah.
That was a big, that was later that year they came out. Uh,
Cause
iconic cover
that
too.
one kind of was like a lot more like see the second album was a lot more. I remember it a lot more fondly because it was around the same time I was like moving or I was leaving St. Thomas to come to New York and moving to New York.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like the soundtrack to it.
Hmm.
Um, but "Slippin'," the iconic cover. I remember like when it came out,
I mean,
I remember thinking this too.
you know what? Also, before you go on, I think what I want to like what I meant to like say and not was that like that first album. It's like I was looking at like New York in like a TV, like Yonkers, the Bronx, all of that on the TV, and just because we used to have Channel 11, New York Channel 11 in St. Thomas, so I'd see the news here, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to this like scary ass place, and then like when that album came out, and then like I actually moved up here, and we used to be in Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, all of these places. It kind of felt like I was living what I was listening to or viewing like on TV. I was finally like living in it, so I could kind of like relate to it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's something when you first told me about that. Probably like early on when we started working together. You had WPIX. I was like, that's awesome. Like, and you had like TBS too, right? You had like
Yeah,
weird
like
channels
I
like that.
knew
The Yankees, like
the fact that like Mr. G is still on like
Mr. G.
WE11.
Hey, okay, I'm zooming now from my bedroom, but okay, here we go. All right, yeah, and Mr. G. We all know Mr. G. Uh, yeah. So around this time, this was a big time. Like I used to come home and watch TRL. What do you had, man? You had like K Rock. You had all the boy bands. You had like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, this little era. Then you had Eminem. You have DMX. Like even like Jay-Z. Give me what like that was on like TRL for a time.
Hmm.
Um, this is like like that's a big deal. We're not just talking about. I never could gauge like what was really popular because like what my brother had me listening to, like he would like play, was like not a player. That was the same year too. And we should bring up too that, and Biggie Smalls died in '97. and then after that you had like who's like the next.
Yeah, it was a big ass void. That's what.
Yes, so you
That's
had.
what. If a lot of people recall, that's what the whole foundation of the Jay-Z and Nas beef was. Like
All right, I didn't bring him
who's
up.
the king of New York now? But that's neither here
Yeah,
nor there. Just expanding on the hip hop history.
and you already brought up Ja Rule. So there was a time where they were going to make a super group. It was going to be DMX, Jay Z, and Ja Rule, right? Remember that? I remember hearing
Murder
that the
Inc.
Murderers. Yeah,
Murder
Murder
Inc.
Inc. Yeah, yeah, and that actually did happen, but it was just Ja Rule and his crew or whatever. But yeah,
Cause they
so
are
you
Money
had those.
Cash Hoes, which was like my
Oh,
favorite
that was a
song. I
big hit.
love that beat.
And oh, you know what? Actually,
That's
now you remind
Timbaland,
me.
I think.
Yeah, yeah. You remind me of the. You reminded me before that even happened. In '97, my brother got this single because we used to get the singles only, the cassettes. It was 5 4 3 2 1 0. You know, I think it was like Redman
Yeah,
and
LL
DMX
Cool
was on it.
J. Yeah.
Yeah, LL
Five,
Cool
four, three,
J, and
two,
then
one.
DMX
Yeah,
was on it, and he was like
yeah.
one of the verses. I remember hearing that.
So I was like
Again,
his coming
I have
out party.
yeah, I have all these cassettes, but I think my brother might have them all now. But I would love to, like, you always look it up and listen to the song. It's fine on Spotify, but that yeah, I remember that was like '97. Wow, that was early on. But anyway, so in early '99, a pop star. He became a pop star, pretty much. 'Cause that was like the type of music at the time. It was like it was a blend of all different types. Even though it was all like one company and everything, Def Jam, like Sony and all that, it was like a blend of different types of music. Um, and then in '99, we had a big thing that happened was Woodstock '99, and DMX performed at Woodstock '99. He had like a whole like hour set, which is a big deal. Yeah, I think so. And then at the end of the year, he came out with his third album,
Uh,
and then there was X.
just the thing, a whole hour set, and this was like 2000, 1999. And
Mhm. Summer
he had
'99.
only been around for like 2 3 years, and he had enough music to do a whole hour by himself at a music festival where like everybody
Mm.
was on there. Like I'm pretty sure he was one of the few people that had like an hour, and he had like as enough popular material to because remember now, like you're like everybody's seeing the video. This is like a rock band crowd. Like people came there to see
Metal,
like metal and shit like that,
rap metal was like, yeah, yeah.
and he had the people moving at Woodstock '99.
I completely forgot about this, but a lot of guys, I think Meth Man did one. He did a song with Ozzy Osbourne, but DMX has a song with Marilyn Manson on the second album,
Mm.
which Marilyn Manson was another. So this is like a blend of all different types of like personalities and like genres. Now everything is kind of like they officially have it where it's like you don't know anything about some other genre, but you know, like when we talk about Little Nas X with the country crossover thing, but so basically back then a lot of genres were mixing, and so the third album. By the way, I'm gonna check out the Woodstock '99 because you can watch like everything. It was a main stage and he was on it. I think I'm gonna watch that again soon. But the third album came out December of '99. This is I upgraded. We started getting CDs. Oh, we upgraded in '99. So that and then there was X. This has "What's My Name," and probably this is his most popular, universally known song, "Party Up."
Hmm.
Would you agree? This is like his most popular, most well-known song because it's been
Yeah,
like
yeah,
used in like movies and stuff. Uh, so yeah, so that's the third album. You remember listening to that back then often?
yeah. I think that was the album that had they don't know. Dun. He was like I saw other thing about DMX too. Like he was his own like sound
Orchestra.
machine. Yeah, his own orchestra, his own sound machine, his own ad lib when he used to do the dog barking, like all of that. Like
Mhm.
his music, like it was often imitated and replicated, but you knew like he was the originator of that type of song. But yeah, he had they don't know, dun ooh we
Yeah,
be. Yeah, I love that album
that
too.
was a big deal too because that was 2001. That was like the fourth one, and I remember hearing it because the video was great. It was like you're like Yonkers, the Bronx, Queens, that the whole thing. It was like
Yeah.
that sound was great, and uh, then in 2003, he was still doing it. He had the this was a big song. This might be his most popular, uh, lesser known song. Where the Hood at?
Yeah, with a
Funny
hood, with
story
a
with that.
hood, with a hood. It's funny as hell because that song too. I like whenever I see like some ghetto ass behavior, like when I'm out in the street, like or anywhere, I'm like I always sing that shit to myself. I'm like, where the hood, where the hood, where the hood. But like, I don't know if you ever noticed that shit when we were working. Like, if somebody came into
Mhm.
our store and it was acting like ignorant, I'd sing that shit to my boss. I'd be like, where the hood, where the hood, where
Yeah.
the hood.
With me with that song, it's funny. I guess 2015, I went on a bachelor party in New Orleans, and it was a country bar,
Mm,
and no one wanted to go up there. We just landed. It was a big ordeal. We were like delayed like 6 hours or whatever. We get down there, we go to the place, has a mechanical bull on stage, and I'm like, "Who's gonna do it? No one wants to do it. What about Mike?" And then when they turned around, I'm already writing my name down on the list. Like I'm writing my name down. What song do you want? He's like, the DJ. What song do you want? And I'm like, where the hood at? DMX. Where the hood at? Only country. And I'm like, I wanted like where the hood, like all like that, but
mm.
got kicked out. I did ride it though. That's my personal story with that. And then he started making movies. I know he made Belly
Oh Lord, that
already.
movie is one of my favorite movies. Um, you know, when you talk about like Oscars so white, bro, if that movie came out today and it wasn't nominated for an Oscar, like I don't even think it was nominated for like visual effects or like cinematography. Mind you, you literally had the freaking Stanley Kubrick of hip hop videos directing the movie, Hype Williams, like extreme visionary, like oh man, like that movie was just like great, and like DMX was great in it, and it had like a very heavy like hip hop cast, and it wasn't like
Mm.
fucking like Crush Groove or some shit like that. Like these dudes was playing like roles, and like it was right up their alley, and like they weren't um making
Exploitive
yeah, it wasn't like exploitive, but it
or a
also
movie. It was like a music movie.
like they weren't making like movies that was telling like stories from like like the projects of like Queensbridge and the
Mm.
projects of Yonkers and stuff like that. So it was just like cool to see it like, and I'm doubting like it had like a huge budget, but you look at everything like the shots in Jamaica, um and my man I forgot his name, and he just died too. I played the Jamaican Don Data. He also passed away a few years ago in a car crash too. So R.I.P. to him. It was just like a beautiful ass like movie. And then the aesthetics, like that box cover,
Yeah, the blue,
the
right?
poster, like
Was
people
it
have
blue with
that.
the park bench, right? Was it blue with a park bench or something? That's what I'm
Nah,
remembering. Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
it was like the scar. It was kind of like Nas in white,
Mm,
DMX in
okay.
black. It kind of took the Scarface look, and then it kind of had like hints of blue. And it was cool because it was a black movie, so black people started having that poster up, and that
Mm,
poster started to go alongside, the Scarface poster, the Godfather poster, the Carlitos Way poster. Like we
mm,
finally had our own shit. So I'm saying all this to say how culturally significant Belly was,
mm.
and I think like the black community realized it, but like the overall like film community needs to start giving our movie like its due. Like it needs to cross over at this point because it was a beautifully shot film.
This is just my memory from 20 years ago. I thought it was blue, but now that I see the poster, I think Method Man was in it too. Another one, who came from like a rap, but then
Method Man,
now he's like
Taran Tucker,
the movie star.
Taran Turner from
T
Minister
Boz,
Society,
TLC's in it.
T Boz, um Tara Hicks. Oh my God, so
Yeah, Turl Hicks is on it.
man, she's such a
Yeah,
beautiful
but
dark woman. I mean, yo, like I remember she was in a Bronx Tale, which is set part
oh
of
yeah,
it is
yeah,
set where I'm living now. But she was
yep.
gorgeous. Vita, who used to be also a rapper at the time, she played like his mistress. But dog, like listen, Belly, can't talk enough about it. But I see, he went on to act in more movies, mainstream. He was
Yeah,
in Romeo Must Die,
Cradle
which
to the Grave.
Cradle to the
That was
Grave.
yeah.
But Romeo Must Die, he
Mm,
um had like he formed a friendship with Aaliyah that lasted until unfortunately her death. And when he passed yesterday, her mom said that now
mm.
they'll finally get to see each other, or she knows that Aaliyah now has a friend up there. Um and the young lady that was in Cradle to the Grave, she's like acting and stuff now. She was in Belly, I mean not in Belly, in Power this season. Um like she was playing his daughter in a movie like way back when, and now like from that she became like his goddaughter, and they had this relationship from when she was a little girl all the way to now she's like a grown woman. So I know this must have been hard on her yesterday. She posted like a video of it. Um, but one of my favorite movies of his was Never Die Alone, which is kind of like an obscure movie, but it was based on old book by famous black author. I don't the name um is displaced from me right now, but that was like my favorite movie of his
Oh,
outside of Belly.
okay.
But
I'll look into
Exit
it.
Wounds, I saw that in the movies. That was with Steven Seagal, me and my cousin when we used to go to the movies when I was younger. We saw that. Um, but Mike, you wanted to talk about his movies.
Yeah, he had a big hit off of one of his movies, The Cradle to the Grave. X Gonna Give It to You. That's probably in his like top, just well known songs, probably three or four.
Mhm.
It's so catchy. And then he had an album in 2006, The Year of the Dog. Um, that was his prime. But the thing I'll say, the last thing I'll say about the actual music, not lyrics, just like the sound,
Mhm.
um, very poppy, very poppy, and maybe that's a credit to the keyboard sound. Like we were saying, like with Swiss Beats too, but very catchy. Like you don't even have to know what the words are, just the melodically is very poppy, which was not the case with
Yeah,
especially
it's
like
not
East Coast
like
rap.
it's
It
not
wasn't like
it's not derisive at all. It's just to say that his songs were easy to like be crossed over. Like X Gonna Give It to You was like the trailer song for the Deadpool movies.
oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
That's what I remember. Yeah, yeah. Very recently, I'm
Party
hearing
Up
that.
in
Yeah.
Here, like you see it in movies and rom coms and shit. So
Mm.
it's not popular. But before we just to end up with his music, I know a lot of people is like, oh, like, or who's not familiar with DMX would probably say like, it seems like he was only like popping from like 1998 to like 2006. Like he didn't get washed up, he didn't get whack or nothing like that. It's just stuff in his personal life. He couldn't really give the art of music his focus like he could have. Obviously, he had to deal with his family stuff, had to deal with his addiction stuff, but he never got whacked. He just stopped making music as much, and he's been on features for a while, and like another rapper obviously didn't get to live as long, so he didn't get to attain the heights of popularity of a DMX, but boy, is his album the one album he did drop before he passed away, before he was tragically killed. Pop Smoke. Apparently, there's a Pop Smoke DMX song somewhere out there. If somebody could get their hands on that and release it, I would love to hear that shit because them two are like two sides of the same coin. It's like the freaking the old Terminator and the new version of Terminator on the same track for me. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like he never got whack. He did not get old or tired or nothing like that. Like he just stopped making music as often as he did. And he always said like he wrote his music, like he took pride in that shit. You can't say you're an artist unless you write your own music. So that was one of his things. People was dropping like random pics, like pics of him in random places that they met him, took pictures with him, or dropping these random ass stories of him just like being out somewhere, but just being a gracious and a very like um friendly person to them and not being like an asshole. And it's not like these stories are not random. Like it's just like the thing with DMX is like he's always just at the end of the day, height of popularity or him just being a known person. Like at the end of the day, he knew like he was just like a dude from Yonkers. And I like from all accounts, like you met him on the street, like that's who you met. You just met like a dude from Yonkers. Like, what's up? Like, oh, you want to pick? I bet. Da, 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 da. Like he was that cool, man.